about both the sides. And it seemed like a good idea to do it at the time. And then we discovered the whole subculture. I don't know if the subculture mediates culture of walking for a national pastime. And that's, we kept walking and it's been Diane. So she's going to go ahead and start to talk through.
Okay, so, for the benefit of the people on Zoom, thank you. I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're out there. If you have questions, put them in the chat. My very responsible husband is monitoring the chat, and if you have trouble with any technology, just put it in there, and then we'll feel sorry for you. We probably can't fix it. But anyway, so welcome. I'm Diane Moxmas. This is Deborah Hansen. I am the coordinator for the Anchorage chapter of American Pilgrims on the Camino. And we'd like to thank REI for letting us host our presentations here. And people that think they're coming to talk about the Camino, that'll be next month. So just to hang with us, you're gonna really like this show. But we have a mailing list. There's a blue clipboard there. If you're not on our mailing list, put your name on there or flash your phone with the QR code and add it. You'll find out all the things we do. We did mostly shows on the Camino, but about a couple of times a year, we'll do shows on other long walks around the world. And those are very popular. So,
both of us have done the Camino. Diane said a bunch of times.
yeah. So between us, we have done 11 walks in the UK and 3 Caminos between the two of us, as well as walks in Norway, Peru, Nepal. So we're walkers. So let's see, next month on October 28th, which is, I believe, a Tuesday, we're going to do a show called Camino Stories, which is kind of a rip off of our entry. So it's like either 8 people telling 6-minute stories or 6 people telling 8-minute stories, depending on how we have. So like short blurbs all about the Camino. Except for me, I'm going to talk about St. Owen's Way in Sweden. But anyway, this is the plan. We're going to talk about 11 walks, and instead of breaking it out by country or in order that we did it, we kind of broke them into these categories of walking through history. Oh, anyway, we're going to talk about the routes, and then we're going to talk about kind of planning and route finding and gear, and sort of just a mishmash of things that's appropriate. So to start with, there are hundreds of long distance walks in the UK and in Ireland. And some of them are national trails. Some of them are just kind of community trails. But if you want to walk someplace in England, there is a trail for you. We're going to talk about 11 of them. First, we're going to talk about walks that we feel kind of what we call a walk through history. If you're interested in history, these are like really good walks to do. The first one being Hadrian's Wall, which is probably one of the most popular walks in England. And then a walk that Mike and I did last year called Lady Anne's Way, which is through the Yorkshire Dales. Then we're going to talk about coastal walks. So we're going to Cornwall to talk about the Southwest Coast Pass that Deborah and Martin did. We're going to Ireland, talk about the Dingle Way that Mike and I did, and then St. Boswell's Way, which is in Northumberland. And my husband and I did that in conjunction with Hadrian's Wall. And then we talk about like cute little villages, and you gotta go to the Cotswolds. So Deborah and Martin just got back this spring from the Cotswolds. And then we're talking about beautiful countryside. So you gotta go to Scotland, you gotta go to Wales. So we're doing those walks. West Highland Way, by far by a factor of 10, the most popular walk in the UK. And then if you can't decide, like, oh, I want that, I want to do all of those things, the coast to coast walk in England, which remains my favorite hike that I've ever done, and Everest as well. So, you save the best for last. If you're only going to do one walk, coast to coast. So now we're going to walk through history, and Deborah's going to talk about Hadrian's Wall.
All right, so did you guys know that the Emperor Hadrian was in the UK in England? Wasn't it? Yeah, anyway, he visited there to inspect his wall in 122. the wall was in use for more than, and there were a bunch of theories about why it's there. One of them to keep out stocks, the other to keep the emissions, and the third part most likely was tax everybody going back and forth in the wall swap. Anyway, there's not much of the wall left now because it was a main source of building materials. And you can see it all over the place. It's in churches, roads, walls, everywhere. But it's a fantastic walk. We did it from west to east. It ended up in Newcastle, and then you took the subway that walls in. But it's a great walk. So I thought in elevation, it's not the steepest walk, but it's about 8,000 feet elevation up and down. And or do you want to click? Okay. There are many forts, there are remains of forts, some of them, like Vindalandia, which is a town as well as a fort. There's a lot more there, and it's a very popular vacation destination in England. So when you walk it, and if you're walking through history, you might consider, instead of just walking through, spending extra time with some of the towns, there's a bus that is basically the Hadrian's Wall bus that takes you to the popular tourist destinations there. And as a little background, when we started walking in 2012, we were thinking about it more. You had to make so many miles a day. And I think it's slowly changed as we want to see what we're looking at and spending more time on the walk instead of thinking of it as a race kind of athletic event. Yes?
Is there any chance to turn up the volume? I'm hard of hearing. Doesn't seem like the mic is working very well.
Yeah, I don't know. Is the mic on?
Yes.
No.
It's hard to believe this. Yeah.
I know, yeah, you actually. Yeah. That's a good idea. Okay, Martin, can you see me, mic back up? The REI lady.
Yeah, she was gonna turn it on. Is that right?
No, it's
What
about.
are we gonna do? Like that? Is that better?
Okay.
Okay, I will do this. I feel like I'm on top for a second. Okay, so Hadrian's Wall, that's a picture of Hadrian's Wall. And I don't know okay, there we go. There's a niche as well as a wall. That sounds like you can hear me now, okay. Niche as well as a wall, and so you're walking along this, you don't actually walk on the wall because it's fragile and it's a national heritage site now. But you can see it goes along the ridge for a long ways. You see a lot of wildlife. I don't know if you've heard about Sycamore Gap, it was in Robin Hood, it's very famous city. Unfortunately, it was vandalized a couple of years ago. It was actually vandalized right before we went there, so we got to get it done. But it's sad that happens. Anyway, geologically, it's pretty interesting as you go along these ridges and you're up high for a lot of it. I will say, we were there when the weather was perfectly dreadful, and we didn't see a lot of scenery, but we had a great time nonetheless. We took the year pictures something because it was really funny. But it kind of gives you an idea of what English countryside is like in north of England. We had a great time. We enjoyed the visit quite a bit. All the walks in England are historical to a certain extent. The first walk we did over the side in 2012 on the border between Wales and England had some fabulous things. Then in Hadrian's Wall, there's a particularly word of Roman history. And I got so interested in Roman history, I subsequently took a class in Roman art and architecture, and now taking one the early Caesars, the 12 Caesars. But it's fascinating. There's part of it, Vindalanda, which we saw in a steady downpour. It was raining so hard, it was bouncing up, and it was flooding. Which I guess we'll talk about later in terms of gear. We should seriously consider rain gear. We can go to England. The English put on the rain gear first thing in the morning and never take it off.
That's the last one.
Okay, there we go. Next, Diane's going to talk about Lady Anne.
Okay, well, Hadrian's Wall is one of those like top three walks. Lady Anne's Way is like the bottom three walks. So, they estimate maybe 1,500 people walk it a year. So it's definitely a walk, less walk. But it is, we went south to north, all the way through the Yorkshire Dales, which I believe are the prettiest part of England. If you've ever watched the PBS series on that, all creatures great and small or something like that, it's Yorkshire. So, anyway, it's considered these little footprint sets out of the tour company that we use to book our places. This is how they rate the guide, give you an idea of how the walks are. I think it was about the same as Hadrian's Wall. I think it was figured it is either a 2 or 3. I think Hadrian's Wall is a little easier than this, but it's 100 miles. We did it, I believe, in 8 days. So Lady Anne's Way is named after Lady Anne Clifford, who at the age of 59 finally got her inheritance that her uncle had stole from her, her estate, which is present day Yorkshire. So she kind of came into it. So the walk starts in Skipton, which is a big tourist town. It is where she was born. So Skipton Castle down on the left has been restored, and it's a very nice place to visit. And it walks 100 miles through her estate and ends up in Penrith Castle, which is the castle that she died at. While after she inherited her estate, she spent the rest of her life and her considerable fortune fixing up all the castles that were in disarray on her estate and the churches, and building almshouses and more churches, and basically spending her life like traveling back and forth, fixing the place up. Well, that was a while ago, so things have kind of just, they've kind of fallen apart since then. But we start out in the selling point of this is like these adorable Yorkshire towns that are just look like they haven't changed since Lady Anne was there. And so very rural, out through pastures and countryside. This is a route that is actually not on the maps yet. And you really need to be able to read a map and kind of follow directions. So it's a little bit, if you're intimidated by navigation, probably not a good one. But I don't think, we never got like seriously lost. We got, we lose track of how many of these pastures we walked through before we had to over a gate. But the walk you can see Mike going up here, this is an old road that was during Lady Anne's Way, a carriage route. So you walk along that, and then you're up along the velds around the top of the hills, and it's gorgeous. And then you stay in these cute little towns. And anyway, so I love Yorkshire. The first, that's the first part, and then about the second, the last third of it, you're down in a valley following a river. These are the styles. If you walk in England, you're very familiar with styles. Lady Anne's Way had more styles than I thought was humanly possible. So it was not unusual for us to go like 40 of those during the day. So if you think you're going to walk 3 miles an hour, and you may walk 3 miles an hour in England, you do not cover 3 miles in that hour because there are fences in the way. Anyway, so this is, it went down along the river. His castles everywhere. This is if you're familiar with Andy Goldworthy, sculptor. We just ran across one of his sculptures in a town. And his stuff is like, in the museums and things. So these churches, they were all open. We would always stop and have lunch at the churches because they always had bench and it was quiet. And then this is Penrith Castle. So this is the castle that she had. So that was Lady Anne's Way. Highly recommend it. Just gotta be good with a map to do it. So now we're gonna go coastal walk. So we're gonna do this. Deborah's gonna talk about the Southwest Coast Path, which is in Cornwall. We're gonna talk about the Dingle Peninsula, which is in Ireland, and then St. Oswald's Way in Northumberland.
Okay, so we've been on a number of walks and we've had 2 with good weather. We usually don't know if we ever go with us because we usually forget other people. Well, we did the Southwest Coast Path,
We started off thinking it would be beautiful, and it was so sunny, I got sunburned the first day. We didn't bring sunscreen, it never dawned on us. But in terms of route finding, it's very easy, you just keep the ocean to your right, and it's very well marked. The Southwest Coast Path was 610 miles, which I only realized when we ordered the guidebook and we were going to do book number 2 out of 3. The overall elevation gain out of the 630 miles was 150,000 feet. It's very steep, you go up and down a lot. The steps on the part we did, I had to crawl up because they were too big for me to walk up. So given that, it is a tough walk, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And every time you go down to a beach, there's always a place to eat. I actually didn't wait on the trip because there's so much ice cream available, and Cornish ice cream was fantastic. And I think we ate at every ice cream place we stopped. So Diane was talking about how fast you walk. We walked 2 miles an hour because we stopped for ice cream a lot. And take pictures, et cetera, et cetera. Back to the previous one, Puldar. Puldar was filmed in Cornwall, and there are pictures of him everywhere, because whenever they were filming, people would take pictures and turn them into postcards. It's pretty great, and you get a lot of pictures. It's a great walk. Oh, a background. This for Martin, you see that picture of Martin? Right after I took this picture, I managed to stick my walking pole through my shoe leaf place and fell on my face. And I could feel there's blood coming out all over, so I kind of wiped myself up and I asked Martin, "Did I look okay?" He goes, "Oh yeah, you look great." Well, people kept looking at me, going, and when we showed up at our camping that night, they said, "What happened to you?" And I went looking in the mirror and I had fried blood all over my face. And I said later, "What did you mean by that?" He's going, "Look, hey, someone fell on the face." Anyway, but, well, one of the reasons I fell on my face was doing that is we were looking down at dolphins. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic walk. These little towns are great. There are tide water towns, so there are harbors, and water goes out, and the boats lie on their side when the tide comes back. And every little town had its own type of boat. It was fascinating. On the left, you can't even tell how steep the steps are. And you do these water crossings, and I was really worried about it because the guidebook was kind of vague. But all the PNDs can tell you when it works. It's not a problem at all. And that kind of gives you an idea of the water that's going on. Some of the walking was quite difficult over those round rocks. And I wondered when we were on that how we would have ever managed that in short because it was pretty slippery. And then partway through, we remembered we had talked to some people from England, the south of England, and they said if you do the coast path, you should only plan on averaging 9 miles a day. We were averaging more than that, and they were right at 9 miles a day. It was a tough walk.
What time of year did you go?
We went in the spring. We almost always go in the spring. The only walk we did in the fall was the West Island Way, the Great Glen. We like the spring more than a lot. We like spring flowers and birds and all the stuff. This gives you an idea of the towns. The towns are fantastic. And it's readily available. It's big, Cornwall's a big tourist area. And there's some advantages of walking in tourist areas. There's more places to stay. There's more options to eat. Oh, and there was history, in terms of the first transatlantic telegram was sent from there. And there's some beautiful gardens because it's very warm. There are palm trees actually growing. We have fuchsias that are taller than I am that grow outside. I mean, it's one of those places where house plants are outside. This kind of gives you an idea of the walk. We just loved it and stayed in some of the best places we've ever stayed on the trip. And I happened to bring this. We plan our own trips. Actually, I plan our trips. And if anyone's interested, I have a printout of I believe it's that trip. It was my favorite Airbnb ever to stay there. And this is us actually in Penzance, which we were interested in because that's one of the starting points of the Camino in England. We building from the island there. Okay, your turn. Thanks.
So in, I think 2021, 2022, well, 2020, we were, going to do the Southwest Coast Path, and things kind of didn't work out for spring 2020, if you remember, the whole thing full of COVID. So, this was our, we did our first walking trip post-COVID. So it is in the very southwest of Ireland. As you can see down here, this is the Dingle Peninsula. So it starts in Tralee, and basically goes, here, goes down, whoops, here, cuts south, and you go along the southern, coast, and then up around, and then back to Tralee. Anybody with any sense just stopped at camp and took the bus that cost $2 and 15 minutes and got back to Tralee. They knew you didn't need to walk the whole thing. So we walked it back. So we walked that last bit. We walked it to get in, we walked it to get out. That last day, I believe, was 24 miles, which is about 6 miles longer than my attention span. So, anyway, it's an absolutely gorgeous walk. We consider this route, there's another walk around the Kerry Peninsula and the Ayr Peninsula. And so we kind of compared them, and we decided to do the Dingle Way because we had read that it was like the most traditional of, the routes and the villages and things. Unfortunately, it was right after COVID and things were just coming back, so that like hanging around the pubs playing traditional Irish music at night wasn't happening yet. So, which was a little sad, but in Galway we made up for it. So we took, we flew to Dublin, took 2 trains, got to Tralee, and just starts off along the river. The hardest navigation of this was finding the beginning. It was like in the middle of a park. There was the Irish cross, that was the beginning of the Dingle Way, so we had to like start at the beginning, so I think it took us like a while to find it, so, and then we were off, and it was absolutely gorgeous countryside. It's very popular place to visit, the Dingle Peninsula, especially the town of Dingle, lots of tourists, most people like stay there and kind of do day trips around, not that many walkers, but we did see some, quite a few people camping. We had some English weather when we were there in Ireland, Irish weather. It doesn't get that green because it's sunny all the time, just saying. This walk had, the Irish don't have the long tradition of walking that the English do, so this is kind of a new thing. So a lot of the trails are sort of being developed, and quite a bit of this walk was on roads, which are, a little bit, it's just part of the gig, but, we did some road walking, but also some, walking through pastures. My shoes smelled, had a very familiar smell of sheep shit after I got back. But anyway, it was gorgeous. There's standing stones from, the medieval times, and these beautiful tiny little towns. I mean, just like one place to stay, one place to eat. And we had some actually, the pubs here, they don't want to be English, they would rather be American, so we had a lot of like fried chicken and hamburgers at the pubs and pizza, it's a little different than the English pub there. But again, gorgeous towns. This is the town of Dingle here, which is like, I think the guidebook said it's like, it's adorable without even trying. Lots of tourists, but it was a very nice day, very pretty. And these are traditional boats that start with the N that I can't remember anymore. They're traditionally made with skin, walrus skin or marine mammal skin, and they look just like the boats in the north on the north coast of the Anchorage, the whale boats, the traditional whale boats. So I thought that was kind of interesting. When I was putting together these slides for this trip, it's like I had forgotten how absolutely gorgeous this walk was. I mean, these are the Alaskan Islands, which are on the very tip of the peninsula. They were the last holdout of traditional Irish culture, that people lived on this island. They were cut off from the mainland for months at a time because of the weather, I think in the last person left there in the early sixties, but they spoke only Irish. They had Irish Gaelic. They had a barter society. They only married amongst themselves. They had no schools, no stores. It was subsistence living. So no one lives there anymore, but the buildings are still there, and they converted a couple of them into Airbnb, so you can go out there. And this was my big regret, that we took a rest day in Dingle, that we did not leave a day to go out to the Blasket Islands. If the weather's bad, you can't get there, but it was really nice when we were there. There's also a museum for the culture in the island, in the town that we stayed in. It closed at 4, and we got there at 3:55, so we didn't have enough time to visit the museum either. So Deb was talking about leaving enough time on Hadrian's Wall. This one, I would leave enough time to do that, because I found just the whole idea was fascinating. But it's or just you're walking a lot of times, near the coast. It did, on the very end of it, we did have 9 miles to walk in on that. And everybody's, I'm just walking on the coast. It's good for the first couple of miles, and then 9 miles is a long way. It was nice firm sand, but still it was quite a long way. But it was, gorgeous to point out to these islands. It is also, they kind of hooked up with the Camino, that it's called the Carry Camino, even though it's on the Dingle Peninsula, not the Carry Peninsula. But it's from Trolley to the town of Dingle's 3 days, and they have, Compostela, just like, or, a credential, just like we have on the Camino in Spain. And they had little boxes that had stamps in it. Mine got like soaking wet, so that it all kind of ran. But when you get to Dingle, you go to the information booth and show them your passport, and you get a Compostela. And it counts as if you're trying to get a Compostela in Spain, in Santiago, that they will count this as part of your meal. You still have to walk into Santiago, but you can count these miles. So anyway, it's a beautiful walk. If you're considering it, there's a lot of walks in Ireland. I also look at the Kerryway, which I think gets more tourists, but I think it's a beautiful hike as well. So switching over up to Northumberland in England, Mike and I did this, I can't remember when, but we did this in conjunction with Hadrian's Wall. So we walked from the Holy Island along the coast inland, and then hit Hadrian's Wall, and then we walked to Carlisle. And so we didn't do the very beginning of the walk from Newcastle or the end, depending on which direction you're going, and we didn't go all the way to the shore. But it's about 100 miles. I call it the Castle a Day walk, so I was happy. So the very first part of it is like you walk from one town and you can see the castle in the next town out on the coast, and you walk to that. And so it's like there's always a castle in front of you. So St. Oswald was King Oswald. He was the first Christian king in England. Holy Island, where it starts here in Lindsbar, is, I believe, he brought over a monk from somewhere, and this is the church that he proselytized from. It ends on a town or a place on Hadrian's Wall where he was saying King Oswald was killed in battle. So it's sort of a pilgrimage of sorts. Lindsbar Island is Holy Island. I love these. These are upside down boats that they turn into storage units, which I think are super cool. Holy Island is only reached, you can only reach it at low tide. There's a causeway that you drive across at high tide that's covered with water. So you have to time your when you go there. We spent our first night here, and it was kind of cool because the tide came up, all the tourists left. Very popular place to visit. And this is the Pilgrims Way that walks from the island across the mud to the mainland. We kind of debated on whether we wanted to walk there, through the mud on our first day of, a 200-mile walk, that we decided we didn't want to chance hurting our feet, so we walked on the road. But it starts off there. It's a lot of this is battlements from the, Second World War. This was an area that they were, keenly aware that the Brits could, the Germans could invade England. It's very, right across the water, so there's lots of, battlements and things left over from World War II. To get here, we flew to, not to Glasgow and Edinburgh. From Edinburgh, it's like a short train ride, bus ride down to the start. Very easy to get to. But it's fairly easy and flat. Probably one of the easier walks we've done. Like this style, we didn't have to climb up too far. It's the house on one side. That's true. But it was very pretty. This was the second castle we went to, Bamberg Castle, which if you ever watched the show, it's called the Uhtred, it's the main character, Uhtred's son, Uhtred. Anyway, this is where he was from, Bamberg Castle, and this has been restored, so we stopped and visited, got my castle fixed, very pretty place. It is it's a part of England that has a lot of people go there and, get, holiday houses, so they stay, rent cabins in these towns, and golfing is a big thing. So a lot of the trail goes through golf courses, which is, in the US, and we mentioned you could walk through golf course, but here, somebody was teeing off, we wait until they were done, and we're walking, and if somebody's playing golf, they'll stop as you walk by, but, seeing signs like, beware of flying golf balls is a little big. And you can see the battlements, gun placements, for World War II. But like I said, not too difficult, not too hilly. And then, Dunspark Castle, which was another cool one, it's not as restored. But these castles from afar they're up on cliffs and things, so they look menacing from afar. And then you get up there and you realize, well, most of it's rock, but it looks like these huge castles. And then at Wartspark Castle, is right when you turn inland. And then we got some elevation gain. And once we turned inland, we never saw another person. Along the coast, you see people walking. It's the same path as the Northumberland Coast Path, shares the, pathway with it. And then a lot of people out just kind of day hiking because they're there on vacation. But we turned inland, and the weather turned bad, and, but it got, very, well, it got a lot of solitude, and, the usual walls to climb over. The guidebook we had was, several years old, and, this picture is taken, the guidebook said you enter the field, we're like walk down the end of the road, we're in a farm, there are multiple fields. The guidebook said, enter the field and follow a well-trodden path to the gate. And if you look at this pasture, you can see the well-trodden path. And so we were walking, and I shouted to Mike, I said, Mike, turn around, and these horses were just following him. And so we get to what we think is the gate over here. I mean, these are like a bunch of football field size things. We get there, there's no marking, it's like, no. And so we start going down, and we see off in the distance a little round marker of the trail. It's like, okay, there's the gate we have to go through. As soon as we headed to that gate, the horses turned around. So they were trying to tell us we're going the wrong way. We just didn't speak force. So we're gonna go to Keep Villages now.
Okay, so I did mention, what we did Anchorage Law in 2024. The weather was so dreadful, it was sideways street, and there was nobody else out because we were the only idiots walking in that water. And actually, the trail was flooded, which I found amazing because it was on top of a bridge. So we had a rest day going to Pennsylvania, but despite all that, we had a wonderful time. The problem was we did like a mile an hour. I mean, you couldn't see where you were going, that's how hard it was raining, it's kind of solemn, and I couldn't sleep was. So we thought, well, we'll do an easy trail, so we did the Cotswolds Way this year. It's only 4,000 elevation gain, it was absolutely beautiful. We had a wonderful time, and the weather was great. You see blue skies, those are my pictures for change. And it was a fantastic trip. Part of it is the Cotswolds made their money in wool, what, a century and a half ago. And nowadays, it's a very wealthy area of England because famous people, celebrities have what do they call it? Trophy farms there. For example, Dyson vacuums and mixers. Has a sheep farm there, and I'm not kidding, they wash the sheep, they're the cleanest sheep I've ever seen. We walked through these things as part of it. Anyway, this was in the middle of it, just a tower, it was a folly that someone had built, I don't remember who at this point. But you can go in it if you want, or you can keep walking. The golf course, there's so many special types of sheep there. There's places for the cows and sheep to walk across as well as people. And they just they have you wait in areas while people tee off and then cross, very civilized. I actually asked the golfer how if he minded that. He says, no, he said, I'm not that great anyway. So we weren't disturbing him. And there was also a tourist attraction, Steve locomotive when we were there. Next one. You can see the thatching, the towns are just super picturesque. And you only walk on roads when you get to the town, otherwise it's paths. And it's just lovely. We were there Easter weekend. We're gonna talk a little bit about Easter later on, but Easter's a little bit of a problem in England in that it's a major holiday. And things are either open or closed depending on where you are, so you do need to plan ahead for that. The fellow on the left is a volunteer warden for that part of the trail, and he was very concerned that we knew where we were going and talked a lot about the signage. The signage is excellent. The only time we got lost was when we came to an area that went into a large park, and we kind of lost the trail there but got back on it. Anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of how lovely it is. On the upper left is the church. They have 99 weed trees that are all topiary. It's just beautiful. And you can see some of the fancy thatching that goes on. This was at the botanical garden we were able to walk through. That's part of planning ahead in terms of having enough time to go look at things. And they had taken this dead tree stump and just carved it into this lovely little, I don't know what you call that kind of thing. It's like a dollhouse well, it's pretty cool. And the food was great. The views were tremendous. The room on the lower left was above a pub, and I mean, it just, you can see the roads, which I really like roads, and then our residence was up there. It was just really great. I mean, I would have loved to stay a couple nights at some of these places. And we took 10 days to do it, and you could do it easily in 7 if you didn't want to stop and look at anything. This gives you more, I guess. Oh, I've never seen a style like that. On the far left, you see Martin stepping over this kind of odd style. But the first walk we did, we collect different types of styles. We were actually taking pictures of them all, but it kind of was all textual walk. I've never seen one like that. You also walk through beautiful beech woods. And that's one advantage of doing it in the spring. We had great views because the trees have leaf out all the way. And I mean, you can just see the beautiful views. They have specialty sheep and cows. You can see the
Oreo cows.
Yeah, I've never seen a cow like that. They have cows with all different types of specialty fur like that. It's actually a different texture of fur. That's the white and the black. They have beautiful horses, very well behaved horses. And we'll go, I still,
Yeah, you're interested for the next two.
oh, okay, I'm doing it. Oh, that's right, the West Highland Way. So we did the West Highland Way, which is, it starts off in Glasgow and ends up in Fort William. And it is moderately challenging. Let me see, I didn't put down the elevator thing on that one. It is about 12,000 feet. It's more challenging because it's, well, not so much a lot of walkers. It's just, there's some challenging parts of it. It's more like climbing the Chugash than most other walks. It is absolutely gorgeous. And you can see why there's a lot of people who walk. We did not run into that many people, and we didn't have terrible weather. We had okay weather, and the path's very well marked. It's gorgeous. You can see why Scotland has so many walkers in it. Also, I believe Scotland is the birthplace of geology, and there's in the West Highland Way and also the Great Glenway, you can see a lot of the things that happen from the various pieces of land colliding with each other. There's a lot of geology books now. This gives you an idea what the footings like. It's just, you can see it's just beautiful springtime. You do walk along fault lines, and that's why you have these long ski lakes that you walk along. And you generally walk up higher. I don't know, is that your picture?
Yeah, but now you,
Yeah. It's like Alaska in that they do have mud on vertical slopes right now. And at the top of the mountains. Yeah, it kind of gives you an idea what it looks like. It's a beautiful walk. I don't know, I mean, you can see it's a popular, beautiful walk. There's places to stay, there's plenty places to eat. It's easy. One of the advantages of going on a long road, like people do it, is it's easier to find places to stay and to eat and to relax, you know, sit, there'll be more pictures and that kind of thing too. That was the nice thing about Cotswolds Way. It's popular for a lot of day trips or day hikes, so there's lots of places to sit, look at the scenery and that kind of thing. Oh, camping in Scotland is very easy. If anyone's interested in camping, Scotland or Wales are the places to camp. In England, you need to camp in a specific place, and it's usually make reservations and pay a fee.
they call this here wild camping.
It's by right. I think it's by right.
Yeah. Scotland and Ireland as well, you can wild camp, but not within like 100 yards of a building. And there'll be signs like that you can't, if you get near a town, you can't.
Our first walk we did on the border between Wales and England, most of the people we ran into were younger, and most of them were camping. And we never did quite figure out the rules for that, but they were camping in Wales, not England. Anyway, just more beautiful, beautiful pictures.
That's mine, so, and I think that's Devil's Staircase.
Which is the steepest
The hard day.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. Other than that, it's kind of like rolling up and down.
That's
Which is coming into Fort Williams. And
highest point in the UK.
And people come to Fort Williams, not only, there's the Pilgrims Express, where Harry Potter is there, and people want to climb in there. So Fort Williams, very popular and pretty crowded. Which is one of the reasons you want to make reservations well in advance, so you stay where you want. Okay, this picture is very meaningful. Has anyone been to Scotland? Okay, do you know about midges? Yeah. So people warned us about midges. I don't know how you would define a midge, except they make life awful. We only had them one day. We sat down for lunch, and within minutes, we were surrounded by midges, which bite the tiny mosquito netting doesn't work, mosquito dope doesn't work, so we got up and left. So this was our rare fall hike, and we did it because of the midges. So we were only bothered one day, but midges in Scotland are terrible. So you can see, I brought this way down the loose chart. The Great Glenway, we did this all in one go. I think took 2 weeks to hike, 1 week for the West Highland Way and 1 week for the Great Glenway. It's an easy hike in the sense that you don't get lost because you're following a fault line, and it's fascinating because the rocks are different on one side to the other. And I thought it was a really interesting hike. It's not as flat as everybody thinks, because you're walking on through a lot of rocks and all because it's a navigable waterway, but it's still got 12,000 feet of elevation gain and loss, but it's very gradual, so you don't notice it. I thought the whole walks were fascinating. There's a lot of places to eat on this one too, because it's a big holiday area. It's just really pretty. A lot of boating goes on. And, we just saw a lot of it. It's a very pretty area. And we end up in Inverness, which is a town that I love. I will say one thing, you have to be aware of the weather. The last day, the day before we were supposed to walk in Inverness, we happened to run into the meteorologist who said, there's a big typhoon coming, and tomorrow it's going to be too dangerous to walk, you should take the bus into Inverness. And the weather's actually was pretty nice at that point. We were like, okay, and we were staying at the same B&B, and when we got to the B&B, the lady said the same thing. And so I booked this a bus because I figured they knew what they were doing. And it's supposed to start raining at 10:30 in the morning. We got on the bus at 10 o'clock, the weather's still great, and I thought, God, this was a big mistake, because there was a walk I was looking forward to. At 10:30, the heavens up. When we got to Inverness, it was raining so hard, again, it was bouncing out through being wet for both directions. We went on to the battlefield alone. It was raining so hard, we could only go outside for a little because the wind and the rain was so bad. It turned out rail lines were closed, airports were closed, ferries were stopped running, and a guy got killed on the path and tree fell off. So, because I thought, oh, we'll be okay, we're in the woods, but, you know, he wasn't, unfortunately. It was terrible. So you do need to be aware of storms, because we ran into a bad storm there and a bad storm on our first time. We had kind of had a deal.
On this hike, the first 3 days are along the canals and the towpaths on the canals. So the very first couple of days is flat, and then you're up in the highlands, back down to the lakes to stay up to the highlands. So the sort of backhand loaded on difficult. It's not a difficult hike, because the trails are, they really go for so long.
Yeah, I think it was difficult. I mean,
No, but
going up and down, it wasn't steep, in the same way that the West Island was steep. It was super pretty. Oh, it's good you put this in, because one thing that the UK does is manage their forests. If you walk through planted forest with the trees are spaced apart, which is kind of weird, but then you walk through logging areas and clear cut areas, which is unpleasant at best, because sometimes it's quite muddy and you get lost, so you get on, which replaces the signs. So it is something to be aware of, it is a downside. We were talking about beautiful scenery, but the fact is, it's a country that's a working country, and that's you're walking through land that people are using.
And that, we walked, this, Craigland Way in May of this year, and some of the trail had been diverted because they were actively logging areas, and so they will divert the trail. They'll have signs where to go. They don't want you around all the trees.
And when we did the Cotswolds Way this year, part of it, they were working on a major highway, and they diverted quite a ways around. Just follow the signs, usually it's pretty well marked. I think these are still your pictures. Right?
Yeah, there's some lines of
Yeah.
towns.
Yeah, there's mine. You know who's husband is like.
Yeah. We touched it every once in a while.
You know, it just looking back on it, this fact sheet, but I like this site quite a bit. It's a nice site. I like going to Inverness. This was one of the, this was the night we stayed in this chapel. This was the night before we got to Inverness and the heavens opened. And you can see it was raining, it must have been the morning we left. It was raining a little bit. And Inverness, which is absolutely lovely. So, okay.
Now we're gonna go back down to the highlands. Deb did West Highland Way, and just kept walking on Great Glenway. We did West Highland Way and stopped in Fort Williams for some unknown reason, but, so being a little OCD, had to go back and finish it. So we did the, Great Glenway to Inverness, and then we took a train down to Pitlochyn and, to walk the Rob Roy Way, which goes back to Glasgow. So this is the town of the West Highland Way, goes through over here, and the Rob Roy Way is just east of that. Very similar terrain. The West Highland Way gets 35 to 45,000 people that walk it in a year. I think they estimate the Rob Roy Way gets probably 800 a year. So it's definitely a path not taken. Rob Roy was the Scottish version of Robin Hood. So he's a historical figure with a lot of myth around him. Most people started driven and walked the Lockian, and since we were coming from the north, we went backwards, and everybody told us we were going the wrong way. So, it's not as well traveled, so it's not as well marked, even though it was, we never got lost, but, the markers were assuming you were coming from the south. But on that way, when you're going the opposite way of 99% of the people, you get to meet everybody in the trail. And, we met very few people that were actually doing it. A lot of people just go from one town to another. They'll like drive to a town, leave their car, take a bus up to another town and walk back to their car, or vice versa. So it's all of these hikes you can do that on. I mean, the public transportation in the UK and Ireland is just amazing. And so if you're just like over there doing the tourist thing, it would be really easy to just, check out what's the hike around here and just do a day, from village to village. And, so anyway, Rob Roy Way was, as I say, it was well marked until it wasn't. But it is, Lockie, and I didn't realize it was a big tourist town. It was adorable. And we left town and there was like a pie shop and we'd already bought lunch for the next day. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, anyway, so here we are at the end or the beginning or whatever. So we're walking, through a park. You're up in the highlands, basically most of the time. And, the paths were like this, they weren't gravel and manicured and great like they are on the West Highway and Great Glenway. But we stayed in really nice little places. Very pretty. We had, good weather. We had some rain, but it wasn't anything. We don't go with Devin Martin, so we don't get hurricanes. But this was the part when I asked, there's a Facebook group of walking the Rob Roy Way, and I said, the guidebook has everything going south and north, is there what's the problem if we're going the other way? Is there any place where we can get lost? And everybody said, oh, it's this place. And it's like, well, they have these markers and you really can't see them, but they're all the way up to the top of the hill. It's like, well, that must be easy to find. But this is the whole reason I wanted to go this walk, because I think these cows are like really cute. So we did manage to see some. Mike has got our usual rain gear, a rain pack, umbrella, raincoat, and a rain skirt. And this cow is just like, what the hell is that? So anyway, we didn't see any baby cows, only big cows. And old aqueducts and a lot of forest, logging roads through the forest. But we got to a place where the road ended, but the trail kind of went on, and they kept having these signs, because apparently if you pull it up on your GPS to try to drive, you can drive through here, and it's just, after that, it's just mud. But anyway, cute little towns, cute little these B&Bs that we stayed in, some of them were just like too cute. On this way, there were towns that were too small, didn't have any place to stay. We use Dev books all for their own stuff. We use a walking company to book everything for us, and they will arrange taxis for us. So we would get to a town, and then they would have arranged a taxi to meet us, and we would have all the contact information to take us to get back to the place we started or ahead to the place we're staying. So, which is nice because you get to stay 2 nights in one place, but logistically, it's like you had to line up with the cabs, and sometimes we don't walk as fast as we think we're going to walk. So, but anyway, it all worked out. And I think we're going to talk about this, but in England, you have to book cabs ahead of time, because in these small little towns, they use the taxis as school buses. So in the morning, if you wanted to ride to the trailhead up here, you have to schedule it around when you're taking the kids to school. And in the afternoon as well, they pick up the kids from school. So here we are at the start of the Rob Roy Way, but we were ending it. This little, it was founded in 17 something. You're actually intersecting the West Highland Way at this point. This is, I believe, the first night of the West Highland Way. So it was kind of fun, because the Rob Roy Way, we passed a couple of hikers, but we didn't pass, I think we passed one person doing the route. So it was kind of fun to be around hikers here. So anyway, so that's around Broadway. It was great. I probably wouldn't recommend it as your first walk in England, but if you're in the neighborhood, to walk.
I meant to mention when I was talking about Cotswolds Way, this sounds odd, but we were dressed for regular spring English weather. In the last 2 days, we got about 80 degrees and we were absolutely sweltering. We came into one town on a Sunday, and the place I was planning for us to eat, not only was closed, it didn't look like it been open for a long time. So we were trying to figure out what to do, we're walking out of town, I was kind of dispirited and hungry and very, I hate being hot. That's why I didn't want. And we get to the town, and then I look, and it's like straight up, and I'm looking at Martin. Martin goes, "Why don't you call a cab?" And I go, "It's Sunday, no one's gonna answer the phone." And I did, and we got the owner of the cab company, and picked us up and took us to our next town. And we got there at 4:30 in the afternoon, and these group of women kept going over the hills. They came into town at 8:30, and all the restaurants closed at 8. That's where you have to think ahead a little bit. And they had booked in a group, I don't know what had happened. Yeah, but I was very happy we had dinner or cleaning warm, or too warm sometimes. Anyway, Opus Dike was our first hike in 2012. We did not know what we were doing at all, but we had a lot of experience Alaska hiking, which was a good hike because this was 28,000 feet in elevation gain. It was like climbing Mount Everest in 2 weeks. We had a fantastic time despite some truly dreadful weather. We had to, at one point, we were on top of a ridge, and I thought the expression being run off your feet was a figure of speech until it happened to me. And I actually had to grab, Martin was right in front of me, and I grabbed his pack to hold on. And I was screaming, "We've got to get down off here," because I felt it was dangerous. We ended up getting hypothermia. We sought refuge in a church. I happened to get a signal on my phone and called her, the MD that came and picked us up. They said they were looking for us at home. That was before people got SIM cards. Nowadays, when we land in London, or you get eSIM in advance, they get a phone number, but it's very helpful in the UK to have a phone that you can call a local phone, so they can call you, you can call them. When we did Hadrian's Wall, similar thing happened with the reindeer running really late, and the lady we were staying with came and got us. I don't know how well she said she was very good at finding people. It was pretty amazing. I had borrowed Diane's fuchsia rain skirt, and that's how she found me, because I was very colorful. Anyway, Opus Dike is gorgeous. It's based on what I forgot what century, 8th century king who built a dike. No, 7th century king who built a dike to keep the Welsh in Wales. To protect this area. And we had a wonderful time. It was not particularly well marked, mainly because we would get to the top of a large hill or small mountain and then have to find the other side, which is a good thing to bring binoculars. Because in one case, the farmer had removed the fence, and I only noticed it when we were staring at the ground, and I go, there used to be a fence here, because you can see how the grass is grown. And we were able to get off the ground. But I swear, every time we got to the top of something, we had to find a way out, and it's not easy. And they had very aggressive horses who wanted to fence stuff. At one time, we got away from horses by tossing cookies in the other direction. But it was a wonderful first experience for walking, and we really felt like we had accomplished something when we finished it. So these are just a few pictures from it. The weather was not uniformly terrible. And we had great views, lots of styles. I think, what was the most we had in one day, like 40 styles, I think 35 styles.
I think it was closer to 60.
Yeah. And they, gradually England's been replacing them with what they call kissing gates, which swing, and it's easier to walk around. It's hard with a big pack, but easier to walk around. We were still carrying our packs at this point. We weren't using a luggage service, now we do. And one of the things I found out is B&Bs were concerned that you didn't tell in advance that you were carrying your own pack. People our age don't carry their own packs. So we show up and people would think, well, luggage hadn't been tell. Anyway, this kind of gives you a view. This was, the upper right was a wonderful mansion, the manor house that had this great Tilbury garden. That was one of the 2 nice days. But there was coming into Hay-on-Wye, which is the town with the most used bookstores, I believe, in the world. It was amazing. Oh, on the lower left is one of the few days it was sunny during lunch too. That was really great to sit down and just enjoy it. But we walked, I think, a 12-mile bridge, flat bridge on the top, and England was on the right and Wales was on the left. It was fantastic. And it was experiences like that that really got us hooked on walking. Oh, you notice the gate on the upper right? We didn't want to pass that one by. But that's what I mean about farmers changing things around, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what we're doing. The lower right is where the Huey, who had to rescue us from being drowned. That's what he actually wore all the time. And he had a Land Rover, and he actually put down a park for us to sit in to use on what we would do. Just to give you, it sounds hard to believe, but our passports were inside of a plastic bag inside of my pack, and they got damaged. That's how bad the wind was. Bonfire is, that was the town where we got weathered out, and that shows how much better it was the next day. And the picture of me on the right is when you get to the North Sea, and at the end of the hike, you're supposed to get your feet in the North Sea, which I actually did. The coast to coast is our favorite walk, and it's Diane. And actually, Mark and I were talking about, I think we're gonna do it directly next.
Okay, this was, our first English walk. We had, done 2 Caminos, and, Mike kind of wasn't interested in doing any more Caminos, so we switched to walking in England, and then we have a friend, Kim and Dan, who had done a couple of walks. And so we used their walking company. We've now used them 6 times. But they were like, oh, you gotta do the coast to coast. So, the coast to coast goes as stated starts on the Irish Sea in St. Bees, crosses 3 national parks. So it goes through the Lake District National Park, and then it goes to the Yorkshire Dale National Parks, and then it goes to the North York Moors National Park. So you get like this variety of views. It goes through some great towns. It starts in like this really cute town, and it ends in like the cutest town you've ever seen. So it has just become a national trail, which means there's going to be money put to fixing up the trail and signs and things like that. But for the past, whatever, 50 or 60 years, it's just been maintained by volunteers. I was surprised, only about 6,000 walkers a year, but it passes through the Lake District, which is the biggest tourist attraction or tourist destination in Europe. I mean, in England, it gets 18 million visitors. So when you're in the Lake District, it is absolutely gorgeous. But you're not going to be there alone, and they don't really believe in marking trails in the national parks. So that was probably the trickiest route finding. There is some route finding on this route. We did it in 14 days, and we picked that because we did 2 Caminos, both a month long, and we walked an average of 15 miles a day. So we thought, oh, we'll be walking 15 miles a day, and England's like, wrong. Because you have to stay where there are towns, and so sometimes you go from town to town, and the town is only like 6 or 9 miles away. But the next day, it's a 20-mile day. So we did it we walked 14 days with 1 rest day. If I were to do it again, 16 days minimum. 20 miles is just, maybe for you youngsters out there, it's fine, but for some of us old people, 20 miles is still away. So you start on Irish Sea, and you're supposed to, get your foot in there or do something, but you're supposed to get a stone. So we got a stone from the Irish Sea. First part is along the water here. That is pretty much, there's not a lot of coastline here, just half of the first day and half of the last day. But you first go through Edendale Waters, which is a nice lake, us being Alaskans, we get to this trail that goes into this rock face and we just like, oh, you just go across it. Well, the trail goes up and around it, if anybody with any sense, but we're Alaskans, so it's like, oh yeah, we could just scramble across here. And I think you guys did the same thing.
The same.
And this is Shelby, he's crossing it, Shelby's from New Mexico, and he thinks we know what we're doing, so he's following us, and he's like, good, I hope the rest of the trail's
Well, the funny thing is, I said to Mark, it's supposed to be a national trail, I can't believe they have people doing this. And so we got there, and there were some English people at the other end, and they're going, how did you do that? He said, well, that's the only way to get there, and then they pointed out a super easy trail, we felt like idiots.
Yeah, so anyway, starting off, making, so anyway, you start off, you go through, lakes, and then you get to the Lake District, and I could swear that we were at Lost Lake or Hatchet Pass when you're up here. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful day, Martin Denver had different kind of weather, but it was just a beautiful day, and, the trails are, sometimes okay, and sometimes they're a little bit rough. This is marked like a 5 out of 5 difficulty in the book, and we kind of question that, of whether it's that difficult. It's probably because the combination of the distance is like 200 miles, and there is some route finding, and some of the trails are a little bit undeveloped. It'd be very familiar to anybody that's like the old trail before they went up to the call at the upper valley of the football field, you go straight up and it's kind of dirt and scramble, but they have a lot of that. Hopefully now that it's a national trail, we'll improve some of those. But the Lake District was absolutely gorgeous. There was a bunch of Canadian women who were like tons of fun, and this was Adrian, their guide. So I was like, I guess you can go on a guide, but they were all friends and they hired Adrian, and he hadn't been on the trail in 12 years, so he soon figured out that we were way better at finding than he was, so he followed us, which was fine, because if you get behind, I think there were 8 ladies going over a stile, it like takes a while. So we were like, get out in the morning and get ahead of Adrian and the group, and, but they were lovely people, enjoyed them. But this is kind of, some of the Lake District trails are like this, that are, a little bit scrambling and scree, but, nothing Alaskans couldn't handle
I
it.
could hear that scene, when we were there, it was ankle deep in snow and very foggy and cloudy, and we were some English people who really knew what they were doing without finding a bunch of other people, because the storm came in very quickly. And fortunately, I just happened to see it, they marked it down as a tripod, and I happened to see it, but we had 0 clue. So the weather can change quite a bit, and the Lake District is known for that.
And the moral of the story is, before you go, find it. Deborah and Martin are headed that way, and go with another. Yeah, they had that. So we on this day, I was like really glad we had good weather, because it's gorgeous, and these valleys it's a national park, but you can live in a national park, so these tiny little hamlets down there, they're just like adorable. Heather was blooming. We did this in the fall, I believe, yeah. So, and then they put staircase up some parts, but there was quite a bit up and down. The towns are always in valleys. And so after the Lake District, you go to a part that's not in the national park, and Mike's trying to figure out like where we are on the map here. This is the Shaft Abbey, which King Henry VIII kind of, and his henchmen kind of did a number on it, so a lot of these abbeys were destroyed, but it's really impressive. It's hard to imagine how huge this abbey must have been. This was like just a tiny portion of it. But so then you get into the Yorkshire Dales, which is like fell in love with the Yorkshire Dales. I mean, it's like, it doesn't like towns that look like that. Just cute little places. Very few places to stay, very small places to stay. They're B&Bs. This lodge had quite a few rooms, but a lot of the B&Bs will only have 1 or 2 rooms in them. So if you're going to do especially a trip like West Highland Way or Hadrian's Wall or Coast to Coast, it's popular like 6-9 months ahead of time to book things. It's not too soon. So, you probably could just show up. Well, you can't show up and do it. You need to book places, but so just be aware of it, planning ahead. And the further ahead you have, the more chances that you have of getting a place that's on the route, and you don't have to go, walk 2 miles to get to another town. So, but anyway, Yorkshire was just gorgeous, did a lot of, you just going cross country, did really cheap. And so we stopped in Richmond, which is like the only town there. I think it's about 7,000 people. Had a nice castle, so I was happy. Nice little tea shops, and having done 2 Caminos, so they basically spent 2 months in hospitals on bunk beds with 50 of our closest friends. To stay in a place like this, it's like, okay, I'm done with Caminos too. I like England. And then after Richmond, North York Moors is here. You walk through some industrial areas, and a lot of people, I think, skip this part. They just bust ahead because you're walking through some industrial farms. So it's literally 2 days that you walk through. It's not bad, but it's after Yorkshire and Lake District, it's hard to, you walk right through the farms, which is kind of interesting. And then we get to the North York Moors National Park, which I really didn't know what a moor was. I mean, I heard like the brown moors at night, but I didn't really know what they were. And it's just a stark, barren beauty that is so different than the Lake District. But the fog would just kind of roll in. And some little hills you had to climb over, but they were basically rolling hills. And you could see where the moor stopped and the agriculture begins. It was really kind of a cool area. On the map was a thing called grouse butts, and they were marked on the map. And I'm like, how do they know where the grouse are? But this is a grouse butt. It is where they shoot grouse, and so they manage the heather. They burn the heather, and then the heather will grow, and then grouse will come in and eat the little things. And then you'll see like English hunting parties, like straight out of Down Abbey with like picnic baskets and wool knickers and shotguns, and they're just blasting away at these cute little birds. So anyway, that was kind of a whole culture thing that, we walked by a couple of them and they like paid no attention to us, but I thought they were sort of exotic. And then it ends at the North Sea. So you hit the coast and you walk up the coast for a little bit. And you hit Robin Hood Bay, which is here at the end. The last day, the last maybe hour, the route puts you through like a vacant lot that has a bog in the middle, and it's like, oh, they're just trying to bring back our memories of the Lake District of walking through the mud. But anyway, it's a great hike. Really, really enjoyed it. It just was very varied, and it could be that it was our first walk, so your first is always the best, I guess. But anyway, put that on your bucket list. So Deborah's going to talk about planning. So we're done with routes now that you're all confused on where to go. Has the handout, if anybody didn't get a handout, they're on the table. Summary.
Okay, so you're all decided you want to go, what do I do now? You have to figure out which walkway we will part of the country. Some of them are easier to get to than others in terms of rail bus connections. But you can get to any of them because, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the national pastime of it. And Diane told you to connect the public transportation in the UK is great. So the National Trails website is excellent in terms of talking about the different routes, how long it takes. They have options for slow, fast, and medium. At this point, we take slow and add a little time to it because we figured out more stuff. All of these are good websites. There's also the guidebooks that Diane brought along, and I prefer this brand, and my favorite author is James Baldwin. His maps relate very well to how I look at the territory I'm walking over. And just to kind of give you an idea, I read lots of books, and so we have a map for today, and here's that. But in terms of planning, you need to figure out what walk you want to go on, what time of year you want to go, and do you want to book yourself, or do you want to use a company? The advantage of using a company is, one phone call goes a walk. It's very easy to do. I like the book because I can control where we're going. And when I look at myself, we can almost always get the right routes. Am I supposed to talk about this here? Okay.
We, just as a side, we use, Nickelodeon, and I have a sample of a packet that they send you. So they send you a guidebook, a map, book everything, and then a packet of what your state is. If you're interested, I can show you. Mac Adventures, this is a British company, Mac Adventures is a US company, and they have walks all over the world. And then these are some of the local ones that we'll use.
Like Sherpa Band also does luggage services. You can get luggage services for all the well-used trails too. You can put them in there. Doesn't matter. But they're all reputable companies because in the UK, the waters there, you can't even go through companies pretty much. It's easy because they have reservations, they can make reservations for their places. These are some of the guidebooks. I mean, it's just kind of.
And we have samples here, these are mine, so don't take them, but, there's some maps here that you're welcome to look at. We're done with the maps.
Yeah, and it's important to have a map, partly in case something goes wrong, you kind of know where you are. You can almost always get GPS directions, but not always. And the problem with the strip maps is sometimes if we have to bail because of the weather, like we have had to a couple times, it's helpful to have a map to know what town you're near so you can get to it. And I can give examples if you're interested. In terms of train tickets, I use the man seat 61 for advice on how to get train tickets. The train tickets, the prices in the UK are higher. You can almost always get a pass. And I think, you can also set an alarm on your system where they'll send you an email letting you know when tickets open up for booking too, because you can't book too early. If you book at just the right time, you get less expensive prices. And most of the trains are reserved trains. The other thing you should be aware of is there are strikes from time to time. They do notify you for your strike that when we were going to do Hadrian's Wall, we got a notice a week before we were leaving that there's going to be a strike in that day. I was able to rebook us going up the east side of England and heading over, and it worked out just fine. And I got a total refund on the first train. So it ended up costing us a little bit more, but it wasn't bad. Very civilized. There's a visa you need to get now to go to the UK. It's very easy to get. If you get, when you apply for it, usually I've been here, it just takes a few hours, and we can go back almost immediately. I did it in the overnight here. It was something there. And I think it's still 16 pounds.
Yeah, I don't know that it is.
Okay, yeah. When we got ours, they just started a little bit less. But anyway, last 2 years, there's no problem. I was worried we'd have to take a printout with us, but nobody asked us. Apparently, they had to treat everything taken. And it wasn't a problem. Train tickets we talked about, Rome to Rio is a great website for figuring out how to get from here to there. I get your advice on bus. The Google Maps app is usually but not always correct. It's not always correct, particularly for buses in the UK. The buses have, different bus lines have websites which are very accurate. You can generally book bus tickets in advance. Like if you land at Heathrow, you can take a bus directly from Heathrow to say Wales or Oxford to start some of these walks. You don't have to go into London all the time. And sometimes Google Maps just routes you through one and it's easier route.
Okay, wayfinding. Deborah talked about this great book. These are trail lasers. This guy who does the maps did the coast to coast, and I believe West Island or Way. I mean, if you look at the detail on this, it's like every single rock wall, every single little fence is on this map. Take a photocopy of them, cut them up, put them in a Ziploc bag, so I have like, I can pull down, I need to know where I am on the planet at all times. And so I constantly look at the map without having to take it. I look at it and then I just toss them. A lot of these places you can download waypoints and like see this is a map this is it's like a GPS program that you can download waypoints in it, and they give you instructions on how to do it in the guidebook. And so this is sea to sea, coast to coast, 61 waypoint, 62 waypoint. The blue is us. Here is 61 waypoint on the map, and here's 62 waypoint on the map. So between the map, and if you really think you're off, you can pull up on your phone. I don't like traveling. I mean, you can get all trails, and hiker and stuff will have a lot of these trails on it. But one, those things just chew up the battery on your phone, and I don't like walking around looking at my phone. But it is nice. I think on the coast to coast twice we pulled this out because we couldn't figure out where the trail was. And we were just a bubble off. And so these maps are great unless you don't know where you are. But the guidebooks have printed maps, depends on the guidebook. But also these OS maps here are, and this is a map of the same area here. Mike is definitely a map and compass guy. And these maps, these are walking company census, the maps. Lady Ann's Way, we got 4 maps just because of how it was, segregated, walk through a couple of different areas. But it's nice to have this Deborah talking about, while you're on here, the guidebook's not going to tell you that, here's a freeway over here that you can zip over if you need to. But hiker, All Trails, and even Strava has a lot of these maps on it if you're electronic map people. But it is, it's sometimes you're out there and it's not real obvious where to go, so it's good to have a couple of options. So here, we all have learned, just ship your bag. It's fairly inexpensive to do it. And so we just carry a bag. 2 things, it's like dress like a local and wearable, because it's like you get wet, it gets hot, it just regulates much better. When we did the West Highland Way, I thought, oh, we're going in the spring, it's Scotland, it's gonna rain. I heard every stories. I didn't even take shorts. It was 85 degrees every day and sunny. It was so hot. But I had a long sleeve wool t-shirt, and it was fine. So good rain gear. We take rain covers for a pack, and a lot of, depending on the hike you're going on, if you're doing the Dingle Way, I would definitely get a neon yellow rain pack. So when you're on the road, a car can see you. So that would be my tip. And gators are good. Because you're walking through that stuff, not so much to keep the snow out, it's just wet. We're all a big fan of rain skirts. They weigh less 2 ounces or something. You can take them on and off while you're walking and fit in the pocket of your coat. They're great. This was the last hike that I wore rain pants on. It's so much nicer to wear a rain skirt. The other thing is I like to hike in non-waterproof because my feet sweat, my feet get hot. In England, definitely have to have waterproof shoes, because even if you're at 80 degrees, you're gonna be walking through wet grass. So, waterproof shoes, gaiters are good, because this is all kind of, you can be walking on all that stuff in one day.
Also, gators help keep the rocks out of you. As you walk on the surfaces. You walk with somebody who kicks rocks up at you.
Share remains.
Yeah.
We've already talked about style, so here's just a couple of samples of things you'll be walking over. These are me in your future. It's kind of fun. This one was kind of the most aggressive one we had. It was and it was the first day, I think, of one of our hikes. Oh man, I hope we're not seeing a lot of those, but we didn't. And then here's the gates. This is a kissing gate here. Where the gate just swings, and you kind of swing it this way, walk around and swing it back. The cows haven't figured out how to get through that. And these are the ones that like to see. It's got these big handles that are open, open the latch and do it. But and be respectful of the farmers. If the gate's closed when you get there, keep closed behind you. If it's open, leave it open. Accommodations, I think. Yeah. Okay.
So we've stayed in all sorts of accommodations except camping. We've stayed in hostels, which we like a lot, The hostels there's a lot fewer hostels than there used to be. The reason we like hostels is talking to other walkers is a really easy way to do it. Although we have found at some of the, B&Bs, it's easy to talk to the other people. We stayed in one B&B that was a former pub. The pub owner couple retired and just were running it as a B&B. And it was great because the other couple, they just took 6 people at a time. And it was really great talking to the other walkers about what they were doing and what walks they recommended. They were all English. In the B&B accommodations, there's a huge range of what they are like. It used to be more common to have a bathroom down the hall. Almost all of them now have ensuite. And because the rooms are pretty big, it's usually just a cut-out corner of a room and a shower, it's fine. There's manor houses you can stay in. If you want really luxury accommodations, you can look on Condé Nast's website, there'll be luxury accommodations to most of these places. Particularly in the Cotswolds, there's a huge range of places to stay. There's farm stays, a lot of farm stays, they will actually pick you up if they're off the beaten track. We prefer to stay right off the trail, but it's also easy right on the trail. It's easy to stay off the trail, particularly if they pick you up. And that's one of the reasons it's handy to have a phone with a local number so they'll call you. Or you can text them. But a lot more people use WhatsApp. Are you talking about food or online?
You're on the first.
Okay, it was great. It's gotten way better. Martin and I went to London for our honeymoon. We got married in '86, and the food was dreadful. It's changed a lot. There's a lot of, particularly out in the country, people have their own chickens. They have a neighbor with a pig. I mean, it's really changed in terms of the food quality. On Oath's diet, we ran into a couple that had just done the coast to coast, and she said, I gained weight because of some of these shots. And you think you'd work it all off, but it's possible to eat more than you're working off on these trips. Cotswold was Southeast. Cornwall was great for that, I mentioned that, and you can see all the teas, and it was pretty great. I love the food.
And the B&Bs will often pack your lunch,
Oh yeah, many of them do.
especially if there's no place to get food.
And they are well aware of what's going on for walkers, because most of them have been in business for a long time. They know if you can ask them just about anything, they frequently, when you look, I don't know if Nickel does this, but when you look independently, they respond and they say, do you want to pre-order dinner? Here are your dinner options. Do you want to have a packed lunch? And usually when you show up, they give you a choice of packed lunch options. And I found it to be real reasonable. They always include breakfast. Hotels are a little bit different. I didn't mention hotels, but there are some places to stay that are hotels, and usually just a big food plan, not always. When to go, spring, summer, or fall. Winter, they're pretty much closed. And this is what I should say, beware of Easter, because Easter's a big holiday. You also should be aware of when the spring break is, because during spring break and Easter, it's harder for walkers to just book one night in the popular towns. They want you to stay at least 2 nights. When I was looking for the coast to coast, and we wanted to stay in Grasmere for 1 night, I had to bargain with the guy and promised to eat our dinner there so he would make enough money off the one room, and he finally just said, in hindsight, we should stay 2 nights in Grasmere, but that back in the day, that's what we wanted to make time. Now we don't care so much. But you should be aware if you're looking around Easter or spring break, that in some holiday spots, that they will want you to stay 2 nights. And, it's not the end of the world. I would be more flexible than I have been probably. So anyway, that pretty much sums it up. You just need to be aware of midges in Scotland.
And midges, I believe, are mostly a problem in Scotland.
Yeah, that's what it's Scotland. It's just Scotland. It's the only place that has midges in the whole world.
Yeah, they're like no-seams with big teeth. You don't feel them biting, and all of a sudden you have this red welt and itches.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
they're very aggressive folks.
it's hard to overstate how awful they are. Okay, next. Oh, any questions? Did you guys make, was that too long? Did you go on too long? promise we keep adding walks because we keep new walks up. We're doing southbound Square next spring.
Hey, Mike, anybody online questions? No questions? Who's planning on going? Anybody planning? They would be scared away. So where are you off to?
I'm gonna do the Santiago
Oh, you want to, oh, okay, when you go?
next spring, not this spring, but the next.
Okay, so thank you all for coming. Again, we're gonna be talking about the Camino next month, telling stories about it. You know, if you have questions or something, come on up and really talk and feel some maps, because we don't have a use for it anymore. Sure.
That's just game thinking, you know what I'm saying? So,
I mean, I can, did you have any questions? Let me shut the recording off so that people online, yeah, make sure the last.
You know, 2015, the same year we did the coast to coast walk, we did it in the fall, because we wanted to be there for the wine harvest. I had that in mind. I first heard about the Camino when I was in college. Pardon me? Oh, did the 500-mile one from south of France all the way across Northern City. And I first heard about it because of the architecture, because of this architecture, and it isn't really within Catholic. So it was fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't change anything we did about it. It's funny, kind of ironic, funny. I actually sprained my foot getting on the airplane in Paris. And we were going so slow that my husband finally said, either you pack or you are going to make the decision. Someone's going to have to do it. So we started shipping my pack ahead after we came down. Pardon me? After we came out of the periods. I mean, my foot was so swollen, I was good to lace it up in a hiking boot, and I could go up, go down, go so far. Anyway,